Before this video begins, I'd like to say a huge thank you to Rainbot Horror for featuring me in her video, and thank you to everybody who's came over from Rainbot and subscribed to my channel.
You are home alone, and you hear on the news about a profile of a murderer who is on the loose. You look out the sliding glass doors to your backyard, and you notice a man standing out in the snow. He fits the profile of the murderer exactly, and he is smiling at you. You gulp, picking up the phone to your right and dialing 911. You look back out to the glass as you press the phone to your ear, and you notice he is much closer to you now. You then drop the phone in shock. There is no footprints in the snow, it's his reflection.
This is my father's story. As a child, my father was a paper boy, and he would get up very early in the morning to deliver them. My father would always end up with a few extra papers, so at the end of his route he would offer papers to other early birds leaving for work and whatnot. On this day, my father offered a man who was sitting in a parked van. The man just stared at my dad and didn't respond, so my dad just went on his way. As my dad was walking away, he heard a car door open and the sound of feet hitting the pavement. He turned around and saw the man running after him. My dad was very athletic on his day. He played basketball and baseball, so he took off running. The man chased him for a bit, but my dad knew the neighborhood like the back of his hand and cut through backyards and hopped fences. He eventually lost the man and got home safely. He didn't tell his parents because he figured they would make him quit. A few weeks passed by and 2 local boys went missing and their bodies were found at a campground. They were raped and shot in the head. The man who committed the awful crime was William J. Wright. When my father saw him in the newspapers, he froze in disbelief, as it was the man who chased him.
This happened many years ago when I was an undergrad student. I worked at a well-known convenience store chain. This particular Monday night, I was working until 11:30 p.m. and was the only employee from 9 o'clock on. It was an older store, and space was limited, so it was cramped. The only cameras were aimed at the cash registers. The store was located between the university classrooms and student housing. It was close enough to walk from campus and back to get snacks and drinks between classes. But business was fairly slow after 9 p.m. during the week. I was stocking the shelves when a man entered. He wore a brown jacket and faded blue jeans. He went to the back of the store, by the beer coolers. He was wearing sunglasses when he came up to the counter with a 12-pack of Bud. My hair rose on the back of my neck. It was dark out, and this customer put on sunglasses. He pulled out a gun, aimed it at my face, and told me to empty the till. He didn't ask about the cash drop or safe. He grabbed up the cigars on the counter and told me to empty the overhead cigarette bins and lottery tickets. He also took my wallet. I thought for sure I was going to die when he had me lay on the floor behind the counter. I closed my eyes and started praying. I exhaled a huge sigh of relief when I heard the door chimes. He wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He had hit several convenience stores of several chains. He got caught trying to cash in lottery tickets. He had stolen credit cards on him as well. Dude in crappy brown jacket, let's not meet again.
Coffins used to be built with holes in them, attached to 6 feet of copper tubing and a bell. The tubing would allow air for victims buried under the mistaken impression they were dead. Harold, the Oakdale gravedigger, upon hearing a bell, went to go see if it was children pretending to be spirits. Sometimes it was also the wind. This time it wasn't either. A voice from below begged, pleaded to be unburied.
Hello? Is anybody there? I'm trapped. Please help me.
You Sarah O'Bannon?
Yes.
You were born on September 17th, 1827?
Yes.
The gravestone here says you died on February 19th?
No, I'm alive. It was a mistake. Dig me up, set me free.
Sorry about this, ma'am, but this is August. Whatever you are down there, you ain't alive no more, and you ain't coming up.
No, please, release me. Come back here.
This is something that happened when I was no more than 8 years old. As a child, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. The reason why I can't really say, maybe I liked her house and the food better. My grandma had these 2 other females that would come over every weekend, and they would sit, drink wine, and gossip about other people. Next door to her was this middle-aged man that lived with his mother, sister, and 2 brothers. They all lived together, and all of them were odd and mean except for the middle-aged man. Henry was his name. He was nice and very quiet. He would come over time to time on the weekend, and while my grandmother and the ladies would sit and talk in the dining room, he would sit on the sofa and watch TV with me. One weekend, the ladies were sitting and sipping their wine as usual, and Henry watching TV with me. One of my grandmother's lady friends, I won't put her name because she is now dead due to what I'm telling you in this story, was drunk rambling about how she can't stand Henry. Grandma and the other friend was telling her to calm down. I wasn't thinking much of it because she was known to drink a little too much and run off at the mouth. She stands up and says, "I can't be around him. Let me go home before I do something." She starts to walk to the door and then turns around and puts a cigarette out on Henry's head. Henry jumps up, runs past me, and grabs the lady and tosses her against the wall. I see picture frames and all kinds of other stuff being smashed over Henry's head. I'm still trying to figure out what just happened. After a few minutes, Henry pulled back from her and I see a knife covered in blood. My grandma's friend was standing against the wall looking and holding her stomach. My grandma and her friend are screaming at Henry to get out. Right before my grandma grabs me and covers my face. I happen to glance at the lady's stomach and see her insides hanging down. After that, I didn't see Henry ever again, but the crazy thing to the story is, in high school I ended up dating his niece.
A mask. Will I ever be free? Will I ever be free of this tormenting life after death? To exist as a ghost, wandering in my own despair, just longing to be put back to rest. I remember how peaceful the long rest was. There I was, sleeping in my ancient tomb without a thought to the living. Complete solitude. I was not being a bother to anyone living, but all of that was snatched from me many years later. Everything I had in life, and even in death, were all taken away, gone. And I still don't know why to this day, and I probably never will. Suddenly the past came rushing back to me. I remember who I was, yet still not why I was here. I never did any ill deed in my life. I was born a human, for goodness sakes. Not this fiend, this creature lurking through the night. I am mad with anguish as I gloss over everything I have lost. This legend of campfire tales and nightmare fuel. The scary stories that small boys tell in the dark. But all I have left is this mask that taunts me so. I can't be separated from it. Everywhere I go, it trails behind me. Everywhere I turn, it follows me like a long-lost puppy. I passed by a graveyard. Lavender Town was its name, to be exact. Or at least, that was the town's name. The cemetery did not have a name that anybody knew of. There were many rumors and hoaxes surrounding it. Stories of how the dead came back to life, to haunt the living. The stories of buried corpses sucking victims in, or of ghastly hands clasping around the living. The most frightening of them all being a ghost, a devil, giving its trainer immense power, just to take it all away. But all I have to ask is, Why? What sick, twisted monster would torture us so? I took out the mask. My mask. Except it wasn't always a mask. It was once my face. Hesitant, frail tears coming to its eyes as I gazed upon it. My face was once so beautiful. All I could do was to stare at the mask and weep silently to myself. I can never be free.
Now, let me start off by saying that, having spent my entire life living in New Mexico, a lot of people I know have claimed to see a skinwalker. They are kind of our regional boogeymen, but ask a Navajo about them and either they will absolutely ignore the question and all following, or they will kind of laugh it off and say something to the effect of, well, white people believe they are myths. Well, here's my story regarding them. My father owns a small delivery service that operates out of Farmington, New Mexico. We mostly deliver small packages out to the middle of nowhere that are far too much of a hassle for the larger delivery companies to bother with. My dad is the only employee, and we have a few pickup trucks and a trailer. One day we get a delivery out to Window Rock, Arizona, on the Navajo reservation about 2 hours from where we are. My dad gets the call for the job while he's chilling with his Navajo friend, Travis, and his girlfriend. Travis mentions how he's got family in Window Rock and he hasn't seen them in ages, and suggests that they go with. I was about 6 or 7 at the time, and it was summertime, so Dad decides we'll go down together. He can do his delivery real fast, and then while Travis sees his family, we can go check out Window Rock. Big rock face with a large hole in it that goes through to the other side. Pretty cool. We had to convoy in separate trucks since my dad's was loaded with freight. We decided to bring along some walkie-talkies so we could communicate between vehicles. We spend our time in Window Rock and everything is generally uneventful, and we start heading home along the old highway with my dad and I in front and Travis and his girlfriend in their truck behind us. I honestly don't remember most of the Window Rock trip, but this next part I can never forget. We're somewhere on the highway between Window Rock and Gallup, New Mexico. It had just rained earlier in the day, and the road was kind of slick, so we were taking it pretty slow. On the left of the highway, there's nothing but sandstone cliffs, and on the right, there's a huge field separated from the road by a small barbed wire fence. We crest to the top of this hill, and down at the bottom of the hill we see what appears to be a very large dog, sitting back on its haunches in the middle of the road, facing the cliffs. My dad calls over the radio. "Hey Trav, do you see that big ass dog?" Travis then starts yelling back over his radio. "That is not a dog! Speed up right now and hit that fucker!" He sounds almost hysterical. He just keeps screaming, "Hit it! JJ, you have to hit it! Please, please! Hit that fucking thing right now!" So my dad starts to speed up, and as we get a bit closer, I can begin to see it a bit more clearly. It's covered in this brown, wiry, matted fur that appears to have dried blood all over it. It's still facing the cliffs, but the moment our headlights hit it, it turns and looks at us and it has a face. I don't know how else to describe it other than a mix between a bear's and a human's face. It looks twisted and distorted and almost in pain. As we get closer to this thing, we start to realize it's actually fucking huge. Though it was still sitting on its haunches, it is about shoulder height with the hood of the truck. We get literally inches from hitting it when it lets out this scream that sounds like someone screaming as their lungs were filling with water, and it leaps backwards toward the field, landing just on our side of the barbed wire fence. Then with another leap, it was gone from sight. Travis comes over the radio again. "Holy shit! Keep driving! We have to get out of here! We need to go faster!" He keeps repeating that last part. We have to get out of here and we have to go faster. Pretty soon we were speeding like crazy, and just as soon as we come near the outskirts of Gallup, we get pulled over. Travis pulls his truck over with us. Naturally, this makes the cop, a Navajo man himself, very on edge, and he immediately asks why Travis felt the need to pull over as well. Travis says, "We just saw a skinwalker a few miles back and it's following us." The officer immediately turns white, stammers something about a verbal warning, gets in his car, and takes off. We do the same. We didn't see anything else that night, but when we got home, Travis refused to let us leave without taking some kind of Navajo totem that was supposed to keep it away.
Thousands of years ago, the world as we know it was covered in dark, foreboding forests. Within these ancient forests lurked strange and frightening monsters, which would become the basis of most of the world's mythology, folklore, and fairy tales. Within the ancient forests hid man-eating beasts, vicious hags, and boogeymen of all shapes and sizes, all of which died long before the modern era. They exist only in the imagination of those who kept the wisdom of their ancestors alive in song, dance, and written stories. Yet, every now and then, the ancient forests return, spiriting people away from their homes or work and trapping them within the twisting nether. These people are presumed missing by the world and rarely return, and even when they do, they are often without memory or means of identification. Within the ancient forest, these souls walk endlessly, pursued by the many dark forces that lurk within. There is no reason behind these events, no purpose, no grand design. This, perhaps, is what is the most frightening to the modern mind. The idea that even in our so-called age of reason, people can be taken away in the flash of an eye to a realm beyond our own, a realm which refuses to play by our limited notion of reality. You can never tell when it will occur, or who will be taken next. It is as random as death itself. No search party could find you, no priest or holy man could pray for you. Friends and family would be powerless. This is no fairy tale, but the fate of hundreds every day. How, you may ask, do you protect yourself? The answer is simple. You don't. Live every moment of every day as if it were your last. Find happiness in the smallest of things, and do not be quick to anger. For this world is fleeting, and no one knows what awaits us when our time finally comes.